Welcome to Iraqi Dinar News, where you receive real and authentic updates about the Iraqi dinar. If you want to stay informed with moment-by-moment developments, make sure to subscribe to the channel and like the video. Today we are discussing an interesting development that has attracted attention among observers of Iraq's financial markets and banking sector. According to a recent report, some Iraqi citizens are reportedly exchanging their US dollars for Iraqi dinar, instead of continuing the long-standing trend of holding dollars. For many people who have followed Iraq's monetary developments over the years, this appears to be an unusual shift in public behavior. While this type of report naturally raises questions and creates interest, it is important to examine it carefully, place it into economic context, and separate observable developments from speculation. For many years, the US dollar has played a significant role inside Iraq's economy. The dollar has often been viewed by households, businesses, and merchants as a relatively stable store of value, particularly during periods of political uncertainty, inflation concerns, or fluctuations in confidence surrounding the domestic currency. Many commercial transactions, especially larger purchases, have frequently involved US dollars, because people believed they offered greater purchasing power and stability. The Iraqi dinar, despite being the country's official currency, has experienced periods where confidence among the public has varied depending on economic conditions, government policy, oil revenues, and exchange rate management. Because of that historical background, any report suggesting that more Iraqi citizens are voluntarily converting dollars into dinars naturally attracts attention from economists, investors, and people who closely follow Iraq's financial reforms. However, before drawing major conclusions, it is essential to recognize that one article or one isolated report does not automatically confirm a nationwide trend. Financial analysts always look for additional supporting evidence, including data from the Central Bank of Iraq, commercial banking activity, foreign exchange market behavior, inflation reports, liquidity conditions, and official economic indicators. Individual reports can highlight interesting developments, but broader confirmation is necessary before concluding that a structural shift has occurred. Even so, the reported behavior deserves analysis because currency preferences often reflect public confidence. When people willingly hold more of their own national currency, it can indicate improving trust in monetary stability. Confidence is one of the most valuable assets any central bank can build, because expectations themselves influence economic behavior. If consumers believe their currency will remain stable, they are generally more comfortable saving, investing, and conducting business in that currency rather than seeking alternatives. One possible explanation is that Iraq's broader economic environment has gradually become more stable compared to previous years. Iraq continues to benefit from substantial oil revenues, which remain the backbone of government finances. Higher or relatively stable energy income allows the government to finance public spending, support infrastructure projects, and maintain financial obligations. Stronger fiscal conditions can indirectly support confidence in the national currency because they strengthen the government's ability to manage economic challenges. Another factor worth considering is the ongoing banking reform efforts that Iraqi authorities have discussed over recent years. Iraq has been working to modernize its banking system, improve compliance with international financial standards, strengthen anti-money laundering controls, expand electronic payment systems, and enhance transparency within financial institutions. These reforms are not designed to produce overnight changes in currency values, but they can gradually improve confidence in the financial system over time. The Central Bank of Iraq has consistently emphasized exchange rate stability as one of its primary objectives. Rather than pursuing dramatic or sudden currency movements, central banks generally prefer gradual, predictable monetary management that supports economic growth while maintaining price stability. Stable monetary policy helps businesses plan investments, encourages consumers to save within the domestic financial system, and reduces unnecessary volatility. If citizens genuinely believe that the dinar will remain stable, or perhaps strengthen modestly over time under official monetary policy, they may decide there is less reason to maintain large holdings of foreign currency. This does not necessarily imply expectations of a sudden appreciation or major exchange rate adjustment. Instead, it may simply reflect increased confidence that holding dinars is becoming a practical and reasonable financial decision. Psychology plays a surprisingly important role in currency markets. Public expectations often influence financial behavior long before official economic statistics fully reflect those changes. When individuals begin trusting their domestic currency, they may convert savings, conduct business transactions in local currency, or reduce dependence on foreign cash holdings. Those behavioral shifts can gradually reinforce monetary stability if they become widespread. At the same time, analysts must remain careful not to confuse changing public sentiment with confirmation of major monetary events. There are many reasons people may exchange dollars for dinars. Some may need local currency for daily spending. Others may be responding to seasonal factors, government salary payments, commercial transactions, taxation requirements, or changing regulations affecting access to foreign currency. Therefore, any observed increase in dinar demand should be viewed within a broader economic framework. It is also important to remember that Iraq's exchange rate remains managed through official monetary policy. The central bank carefully monitors liquidity, inflation, foreign reserves, and financial stability. Any significant policy adjustments would normally be communicated through official channels, rather than inferred solely from changes in consumer behavior. From a short-term perspective, increased demand for the dinar inside Iraq could provide additional support for exchange rate stability. Higher domestic demand for the national currency may reduce pressure on foreign exchange markets if it reflects genuine confidence rather than temporary market activity. Stable currency conditions can benefit businesses by making imports more predictable, supporting investment planning, and reducing uncertainty in commercial contracts. For Iraqi households, greater confidence in the domestic currency can also encourage increased participation in the formal banking system. Instead of holding physical cash outside banks, more people may choose to maintain deposits, use electronic payment services, or access additional financial products. Increased banking participation improves financial intermediation, allowing banks to support lending, business expansion, and broader economic activity. Modern economies generally function more efficiently when citizens actively use their domestic banking systems. Deposits provide liquidity for financial institutions, which can then extend credit to businesses and entrepreneurs. As access to financing improves, investment opportunities may expand, potentially supporting employment and long-term economic development. Another important consideration involves inflation expectations. If citizens believe inflation will remain under control, they become more comfortable holding domestic currency. High inflation tends to encourage people to seek alternative stores of value, including foreign currencies. Conversely, confidence that purchasing power will remain relatively stable encourages greater use of the national currency. Oil revenues remain another key factor influencing Iraq's financial outlook. Since petroleum exports generate most government income, fluctuations in global energy prices continue to affect fiscal performance. Strong energy markets generally improve government revenue, strengthen foreign reserve accumulation, and enhance the country's ability to support macroeconomic stability. However, dependence on oil also means diversification remains an important long-term policy objective. Economic diversification has been a recurring priority within Iraq's development plans. Expanding agriculture, manufacturing, tourism, logistics, technology, and private sector investment can gradually reduce reliance on energy exports alone. A more diversified economy generally contributes to stronger currency fundamentals because economic growth becomes supported by multiple sectors rather than a single commodity. Foreign investment also deserves attention. International investors often evaluate monetary stability before committing long-term capital to developing markets. Predictable exchange rate policy, transparent regulations, and financial sector reforms can improve investor confidence over time. Increased investment supports employment, technology transfer, infrastructure development, and productivity growth. The reported shift toward holding more dinars could therefore be interpreted as one element within a much larger economic picture. Confidence in a currency rarely develops overnight. Instead, it usually reflects years of gradual institutional improvement, policy consistency, financial reforms, and macroeconomic stability. Still, responsible analysis requires acknowledging uncertainty. Reports describing public behavior should be viewed as informative observations rather than definitive proof of future currency movements. Currency valuation depends upon numerous interconnected variables, including inflation, interest rates, productivity, fiscal policy, external trade, geopolitical developments, capital flows, and central bank decisions. One common mistake in financial discussions is assuming that every positive development automatically signals a dramatic appreciation in currency value. Professional economists generally avoid making such assumptions. Monetary authorities prioritize stability because excessive volatility can disrupt business activity, increase inflation risks, and reduce investor confidence. For followers of the Iraqi dinar internationally, developments like these are interesting because they potentially indicate improving domestic confidence. However, confidence itself should not be confused with confirmation of future exchange rate changes. Responsible observers should continue monitoring official announcements, economic statistics, banking reforms, reserve levels, inflation reports, and fiscal policy, rather than relying exclusively on speculation. Another encouraging aspect involves the broader modernization of Iraq's payment infrastructure. Electronic payment systems have expanded considerably in recent years. Digital banking services, payment cards, and electronic salary distribution gradually reduce dependence on physical cash transactions. Improved payment efficiency contributes to financial inclusion and strengthens monetary policy transmission throughout the economy. Financial inclusion matters because it integrates more citizens into the regulated financial system. Greater participation increases transparency, improves tax collection efficiency, supports business formalization, and provides households with additional financial services. Over time, these improvements strengthen the overall economic environment. International organizations have also frequently emphasized the importance of financial sector modernization for emerging economies. Strong regulatory frameworks, transparent banking practices, effective supervision, and compliance with international standards enhance credibility both domestically and internationally. Correlated confidence is ultimately built upon institutions rather than headlines. Citizens evaluate their experiences over time. If inflation remains manageable, salaries retain purchasing power, banking services improve, and economic opportunities expand, confidence naturally grows. Those gradual improvements often have greater long-term significance than short-lived market reactions. Market expectations themselves can influence financial behavior. When consumers become optimistic about economic stability, they may spend differently, save differently, or invest differently. Businesses likewise adjust hiring, inventory management, and capital expenditure based upon expectations regarding future economic conditions. Therefore, improving confidence can generate positive feedback throughout the economy. Nevertheless, every economy also faces risks. Global commodity prices remain volatile. Regional geopolitical developments can influence investor sentiment. External economic shocks may affect trade, energy demand, or financial markets. Responsible analysis always recognizes both opportunities and risks rather than focusing exclusively on one side of the equation. For Iraq specifically, continuing reforms will likely remain essential, regardless of short-term market developments. Enhancing private sector competitiveness, strengthening public institutions, improving infrastructure, reducing administrative barriers, and encouraging entrepreneurship all contribute to sustainable long-term growth. Monetary stability becomes more durable when supported by broad economic development. Foreign reserve management is another critical component. Adequate foreign exchange reserves provide central banks with flexibility to address market pressures, support exchange rate management when necessary, and maintain confidence during periods of uncertainty. Iraq has historically maintained substantial reserves relative to many developing economies, providing an important element of financial resilience. Government fiscal discipline also influences monetary outcomes. Responsible budgeting, efficient public spending, and sustainable debt management help reinforce macroeconomic stability. Investors and citizens alike generally respond positively when fiscal policy remains predictable and transparent. Looking ahead, observers will likely pay close attention to additional economic data that either confirms or challenges reports of changing public currency preferences, commercial banking statistics, deposit growth, foreign currency demand, consumer confidence surveys, inflation data, and central bank communications may provide a clearer picture over time. If the trend of increasing confidence in the dinar proves sustainable, it could support broader economic normalization. Greater reliance on the domestic currency simplifies monetary management, strengthens financial intermediation, and reinforces national economic sovereignty. These are gradual structural developments rather than overnight transformations. It is equally important to emphasize that sustainable currency strength typically reflects underlying economic fundamentals: productivity growth, diversified exports, efficient institutions, competitive businesses, sound fiscal management, and credible monetary policy collectively determine long-term currency performance. Lasting appreciation rarely occurs in isolation from these broader fundamentals. For international Iraqi dinar followers, the most productive approach remains focusing on verified information rather than speculation. Official statements, central bank policies, credible economic research, and measurable financial indicators provide a stronger basis for understanding developments than rumors or unsupported claims circulating online. The report suggesting that some Iraqi citizens are exchanging US dollars for Iraqi dinars is certainly noteworthy because it potentially reflects improving domestic confidence. However, it should be viewed as one data point within a much larger economic narrative. Continued observation, official confirmation, and consistent economic performance will ultimately determine whether this represents a lasting structural trend or a temporary market development. In the months ahead, Iraq's progress will continue to depend on responsible monetary policy, banking modernization, economic diversification, institutional reforms, infrastructure investment, and prudent fiscal management. These long-term foundations matter far more than short-term speculation because they create the environment in which sustainable economic growth can occur. For viewers following Iraqi dinar developments, today's discussion highlights the importance of understanding not only what happens in currency markets, but also why it happens. Economic behavior, public confidence, central bank policy, government reforms, and broader macroeconomic conditions all interact to shape the future of a nation's currency. Reports indicating increased confidence among citizens deserve attention, but they should always be interpreted carefully and supported by additional evidence as more information becomes available. Thank you for watching today's Iraqi dinar news update. If you appreciate responsible, balanced, and factual coverage of Iraq's economy and monetary developments, be sure to subscribe to the channel and like the video so you don't miss future updates. As always, this content is provided for informational and educational purposes only. It reflects analysis based on publicly discussed developments and should not be considered financial, investment, or trading advice. Always conduct your own research and consult qualified financial professionals before making any investment decisions.